Hello everyone, today is December 9th, 2022. Welcome back to the Panda and History channel. Chinese leader Xi Jinping landed in Saudi Arabia on December 7th for a 4-day visit that could deepen the relationship between the world's top oil importer and the top oil exporter when a global reshuffling of power accelerated by the Ukraine war. China, the world's biggest energy consumer, is a major trade partner of Gulf oil and gas producers. Bilateral ties have expanded very rapidly in recent years. US is watching closely about growing Chinese involvement in the sensitive infrastructure in the Gulf. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman offered Xi the most lavish welcome, in contrast with the poor reception of the current US President Joe Biden this summer. Of course, Xi brought with him big contracts and deals, and Biden is there to press his ally to sacrifice for the US interest. Arriving at the airport, Xi stepped out of his airplane and waved to the welcoming Saudi officials. 21 cannons were fired, and airplane flew over the yellow and red tail to signify Chinese national flags. Xi was met by Governor of Riyadh, the kingdom's foreign minister, and the governor of Sovereign Wealth Fund PIF. And Xi's limo is accompanied by the Arab horses to the palace. Crown Prince welcomed Xi outside of the car. It's not difficult to see how much Saudi has valued the relations with China. Xi's trip to Saudi Arabia will be a very efficient 3-in-1 visit. He will hold bilateral talks with Saudi Arabia, and Riyadh will later host a wider meeting with Gulf Arab states and a summit with Arab leaders. According to both Arab and Chinese media, this visit will be an epoch-making milestone in the history of the development of China-Arab relations. While the warm and lavish reception is only the surface, there are multiple deep courses on why US influence is failing in the Middle East. It's partly due to the wrong national policies, corrupt and incompetent US leaders, while the extremely political polarized voters at home are still fighting each other. The outside world has already shifted a long way. The first and foremost factor is economy. With globalization, US manufacturing jobs have been largely shifted overseas. Without manufacturing, the need for crude oil is of course shrinking. The American shale boom has revolutionized how the oil is produced, greatly increased the domestic production, and bring fuel independence to US. Starting in the early 2000s through 2010s, this has greatly limited OPEC's ability to control oil prices. Consequently, crude oil price fell drastically to as low as $35 per barrel in 2015. Many oil exporting countries had severe problems in balancing their budget. By 2016, countries like Saudi Arabia and Russia had been adversely affected by low oil prices. China has benefited most from globalization. It is now Saudi Arabia's largest trading partner, with bilateral trade worth $87.3 billion in 2021. Chinese exports to Saudi Arabia reached $30.3 billion, while China's imports from the kingdom totaled $57 billion. Saudi Arabia is China's top oil supplier, making up 18% of China's total crude oil purchases, with import total 37 million tons in the first 10 months of 2022, worth of 55.5 billion according to Chinese customs data. State-run Saudi Aramco has annually supplied deals with half a dozen Chinese refiners, including Sinopec, CNPC, CNOOC, Sinochem, as well as private refiner Zhejiang Petrochemical Corp. Instead, US goods and services trade with Saudi Arabia totaled an estimated $38.7 billion in 2019, which shrank to 24.7 billion in 2021, a 36% drop. The Saudi-US trade is only one-fourth of Saudi-China trade. Less economic ties, less influence. The second factor is weapon deals. Remember this July, President Joe Biden went to Saudi and met with Crown Prince, begging him to increase oil production to lower the oil price in the wake of a high inflation. In early October, right before US midterm election, OPEC Plus announced its largest supply cut since 2020 to the ton of 2 million barrels per day starting from November. The impacts to the already high US inflation rate and midterm election is obvious. President Joe Biden becomes so angry at Saudi Arabia for its decision and he's made no secret of it. For this, Biden said in an interview with CNN that there would be consequences. He did not go into further detail as to what those consequences might be. The potential consequences Washington can put into action, including cutting its military support to the Saudi kingdom and going after OPEC with US laws. Even Senate Bernie Sanders said in a tweet that if Saudi Arabia, one of the worst violators of human rights in the world, wants to partner with Russia to jack up US gas price, it can get Putin to defend its monarchy. We must pull all US troops out of Saudi Arabia, stop selling them weapons, and end its price-fixing oil cartel. Yes, Saudi Arabia is risking losing the US protection and weapon purchases. Let's look at the 2022 Zhuhai Air Show held in China long ago. Saudi Arabia and China signed military contracts totaling more than $4 billion US, including cutting-edge Chinese weaponry like 300 Rainbow 4B drones, 15 Eagle 21E supersonic ballistic missiles, multiple sets of Silent Hunter laser air defense weapons to counter drone attacks, and also drone TB001. Rainbow 4B is an improved model of the Rainbow 4 drone in the Rainbow series. This type of aircraft is not very advanced, but it is cheap and has a large size. 300 Rainbow 4B is a pretty large order. The US Air Force operates fewer than 200 drones in active service. Another drone purchased by Saudi Arabia is TB001, which is known as the twin-tailed scorpion. This drone was equipped by the People's Liberation Army and has been used in the East China Sea, Taiwan Strait, and South China Sea to perform daily patrol duties. With the advancement of Chinese manufacturing and military technology, Chinese weapon systems and solutions are more and more popular with its high performance and modest price, especially to those countries that have been bullied and denied access by US for a long time. China is even selling the whole Army Brigade combat team, which is directly targeting rich Middle East buyers. The third factor is infrastructure. China is building infrastructure for the whole world, and there is no competition of its technology, price, and speed. China has already built amazing infrastructure in Middle East. Given the Haramain high-speed railway, for example, it is the first high-speed railway built in the Middle East, and it is built to serve for one of the most important religious and cultural events, the pilgrimage to Mecca. It is built in an extremely challenging environment of extreme heat and sandstorms, and need to overcome insurmountable construction challenges. In its own website, it says, Al Haramain Express Train Project is providing a new electric railway for passengers with a length of 450 kilometers and an operational speed of 300 kilometers per hour. The project aims to provide a fast, convenient, reliable, and safe way to travel between the holy cities of Mecca and Medina while utilizing state-of-the-art technologies. This project has successfully shortened a day trip to an hour and a half, which now you can finish the round-trip pilgrimage in one day. What US can do here? US cannot even build its own dated infrastructure. The fourth factor is green energy. Europe has introduced the Renewable Energy Directive in 2009. The development of renewable has kept growing yearly, reaching more than 22% in 2020. US has a similar numbers. The European Renewable Energy Directive was revised in 2018 and is legally binding since 2021. The existing directive sets the European target for renewable energy and includes rules to ensure the uptake of renewables in the transport sector and in heating and cooling. Looking at the aggressive timeline, in 2019, EU power production from wind and solar surpassed coal for the first time. EC proposal in 2021 to raise renewable energy directive target for 2030 to 40%. Then again in 2022, EC proposal to raise the target for 2030 to 45%. According to International Council on Clean Transportation (ICCT), latest global modeling requires 75% of EV sales by 2030, and by 2035, all vehicles selling in market should be 100% electric. This is for all the leading markets such as Europe, United States, and China. In this new game of clean energy, who are the big winners? The countries with clean energy technologies and patents. Then who are the biggest losers? Of course, the oil exporters and OPEC plus members. Is there any sympathy on those oil countries or offer any help to replace their dependency on fossil fuel? Every country is working hard to be the leading player in the new game. The pessimistic prediction by the former oil minister of Saudi Arabia and the active minister in OPEC for 25 years, Sheikh Ahmad Zaki Yamani in 2000. 30 years from now, there will be a huge amount of oil and no buyers. Oil will be left in the ground. The Stone Age came to an end not because we are lack of stones, and the oil age will come to an end not because we are lack of oil. US has nothing to offer to the oil countries in the clean energy movement. China is leading the green energy and electric vehicle, and it is far more positive and helpful for the third world countries. Factor 5 is about security and diversification. Saudi has one of the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world, Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, PIF, is a sovereign wealth fund located in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It was founded in 1971. Current assets of PIF is worth $600 billion. In July 2014, the Council of Ministers granted the PIF authority to fund new companies inside and outside the kingdom, either independently or in cooperation with the public and private sectors, without the Council's prior approval. In 2020, PIF purchased minority stakes in major US companies, including Boeing, Facebook, Disney, Citigroup, Bank of America, and even Berkshire Hathaway. In 2020, PIF reduced its holdings in US stock to $7 billion from $10.1 billion in the third quarter. Since the Ukraine-Russia war broke out this February, US and its Western allies have used economic nuclear weapons on Russia. Russian banks were kicked out of the SWIFT system. Russia overseas assets were frozen and seized. Russians' property and even yachts were confiscated. Embargoes on Russian oil and gas, price limits on oil and gold, all of this are effective to some extent. but this is a double-sworded weapon. It not only weakens the US dollar as a neutral preserve currency, it also sends a message to the whole world. I can do whatever I want, even if I betray the basic principle of the Western civilization. Saudi Arabia is exactly like Russia and can be treated the same one day if the wind turns around. With hundreds of billions of dollars asset kept in the West, Saudi Arabia, of course, is concerned to be treated like Russia one day. Remember the Jamal Khashoggi murder. What if the US determines Saudi's crown prince is guilty instead of immune in the case? US can freely frozen and take away Saudi's assets as their own wish? Saudi and China are both criticized by US as the worst human rights violators in the world, and both are claimed to be authoritarian regime. So they share the same value and should naturally go together. US is keeping on saying China's development is a threat to the current world order. Come on, for the 2000 years Chinese monarchy, the only people who want the order to be maintained is the imperial ruler and his aristocrats and lords. If the world is flat and every country is equal, the order that US is trying to maintain is not only immoral, but will be harder and harder to maintain. I have analyzed why China has a competitive edge over US to develop a better relationship with Saudi Arabia for the 6 big areas: economy, arms deal, infrastructure, green energy, investment, and diversification, and the common value. It's very sad to admit a democracy is losing to an authoritarian regime. US has made too many mistakes in the past decades. In our next video, we will discuss the more important things, the petrodollars and its replacement by petro-yuan. Without the power of petrodollars, US economy will sure have a long streak of dark days ahead of us. I'm doing all this in my spare time. My interest is philosophy and history. And please hit the like and subscribe button. That would be a great support for me. See you in my next video.